There are a number of technologies that I think are going to help. I mean, first of all, let's deal with the most important things that will drive the transition from a carbon reduction standpoint. The first of those is carbon capture and storage, and if possible, carbon capture, storage and usage. But this is a crucial part of the transition, capturing the carbon we already emit and will emit in the future, and adjoining new facilities along with carbon capture facilities in order to reduce the global carbon footprints. I think this is much more important than people are giving it credit for. Now, clearly there are actions underway in different parts of the world, but it's complicated. It's expensive, but I think if we pick the right locations where we have good access to storage and pore space, I think we have a real chance of delivering a meaningful impact on the energy transition. I think I've seen a number of green technologies which I think will contribute, and I think just before I get on to one or two of them, I think it's very important to recognize that it is not going to be one size fits all. The energy transition will be an amalgam of many different technologies, renewable sources, decarbonizing existing sources, underpinned by, in the long run, natural gas. It'll be all of these things together. And I think at our peril, we start to look for single point solutions that will, in one fell swoop, deal with the issues completely. That is not going to happen. So when we come on to green, whether it's green ammonia or green hydrogen or blue hydrogen for that matter, I mean, these technologies will have a role to play. And I think it's important to emphasize that it's better to make a small piece of progress than no progress at all. And, I often use an expression called boiling the ocean. If we try and boil the ocean, we will not succeed. So for instance, in taking hydrogen, we can put 10% of hydrogen into a methane system, into a reticulation system very easily. And that's something we should strive to do as quickly as possible. And it's better to think about solving 10% and do it quickly and well, rather than trying to solve 100% and doing it over a much longer time frame or not at all, principally because of the cost impact. So carbon capture, green technologies, and of course there are a whole array of other demand side technologies that we're looking at, all of which will contribute in a small and in combination significant way to the overall transition. Renewable sources are going to be crucial in the energy transition. That sounds like an awfully straightforward and simple thing to say, but renewable technologies or renewable sources require a long-term underpin to manage the enormous demand we have for energy across the globe. And I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that whilst we increase the deployment of wind, of solar, of hydro, and ultimately of nuclear, these things in the short run are just covering incremental global energy demand. In other words, as global energy demand increases, the increase, albeit exponential in some cases, of renewable sources is just covering the increase in demand. So it's important to recognize that we need a long-term hydrocarbon plan, and by that I really mean a natural gas plan, to underpin the deployments, the installation of new renewable sources and existing renewable sources. And together, natural gas partnered with renewable sources can make an orderly transition from where we are today to many decades from now, when we're seeking to be much more carbon efficient. It's important to recognize again that incremental steps are important. Incremental steps will allow us to get to the place we need to get to. Trying to take too many steps at once has a risk of failure. And by that I mean we have to look for things that will incrementally reduce the long-term carbon efficiency or carbon output, and incrementally get to the goal we need to reach. And part of that is in the hydrocarbon system. Part of that is replacing coal with natural gas, assuming, of course, that in natural gas and in LNG, we are able to be competitive as much as we can with locally sourced coal in many markets, which is ultimately our competition. Look, we all know that in 2022, the world burnt more coal than it ever has done in any year preceding. We have a real challenge to reduce coal, but we can do that by acknowledging the partnership between extremely high efficient solar, extremely and increasingly efficient wind, particularly offshore wind, the use of as much hydro as possible. And now, frankly, the real game changer for all of us will be nuclear. Now, there's a public acceptability around nuclear. It's not something people like to talk about. It's not something people want to imagine will be built anywhere near where they live and work. But ultimately, the true renewable source, for the planet has got to be nuclear. And I think the sooner we engage in that conversation meaningfully, I think the better it will be. The sooner we get to the outcome we need. Now, there are plenty of technologies under development within the nuclear space, and all of these will be crucial, not least of all small scale, where again we're finding an incremental solution to part of a local demand or regional demand. So again, all of these things coming together are what will in totality provide the solution to the energy transition that we all seek and want, and of course is so necessary. So Tellurian and net zero, we have three pathways to taking us towards net zero, and let me go through them one by one. The first is conservation. So, in the E&P space, it's important to deal with the methane emissions, very much talked about in the industry, and we are tackling methane emissions at the source in our fields, in our exploration and production operations. So zero methane links is the most important part of our conservation strategy. Our second strategy is mitigation. And by mitigation, we mean that we mitigate the emission of carbon dioxide in the first instance. So we use the latest equipment, the latest technology, the best valves for mitigating any possible leaks. But I think most importantly in our mitigation strategy is our use of electric compressors on our pipeline, our driftwood pipeline, feeding the driftwood plants, which is the first time in the United States that electric compression has been used in a pipeline. This is a real game changer for carbon emissions in the pipeline from source to the LNG plant. And the third of our strategies is around sequestration. And here we are looking at carbon offsets, and we have committed to spend $25 million with the National Forest Foundation and the US Forest Service, and we will plant a total of 13 million trees over a 5-year period. Now, to date, we've planted 3 million trees in 2 years, and we will go on to plant another 10 million trees in the next 3 years. So that's the third leg of our our pathway to zero, net zero in our business. So conservation, mitigation, sequestration, and there it is.